What if the life you proudly call freedom is actually a mental prison built from desires you never chose and fears you never examined? You are busy. You are choosing. You are moving from one decision to the next, one option to the next, one version of yourself to the next. And yet underneath all of that motion, there is something that does not move. A quiet, persistent feeling that you are not quite in control. That the choices you make are somehow already made before you make them. That the life you are building looks like freedom from the outside but feels like a corridor you cannot leave from the inside. You have noticed the pattern. You have told yourself you would stop reacting the same way. You have promised yourself that this time you would choose differently. And then something happens. A message, a rejection, a fear, a craving. And you are somewhere else before you even decided to go. Not because you are weak, not because you lack willpower, but because something underneath the decision is moving you, and you have never been introduced to it. What Spinoza is about to offer you is not a new set of choices. It is something far more dangerous to the prison you are living in. He is going to show you the difference between doing what you want and understanding why you want it. That difference is not a philosophical detail. It is the entire distance between slavery and freedom. And by the time this video ends, you will not look at your desires the same way again. There is a belief so deeply woven into the way we live that almost no one questions it. The belief is this: if I am doing what I want, I am free. If no one is forcing me, if I am following my own desire, then the choice is mine. This sounds obvious. It sounds almost too simple to argue with. But Spinoza saw through it. He understood that a desire you did not choose, a desire produced by forces you cannot name, is not a declaration of freedom. It is a command you have mistaken for your own voice. Think about what it means to follow a craving without knowing where the craving came from. Think about what it means to chase approval without knowing which wound taught you that approval was survival. Think about what it means to avoid silence without knowing what silence makes you face. The desire feels like yours. It rises from inside your body. You experience it as your preference, your personality, your style. But who built that preference? Who shaped that personality? What made that particular thing feel necessary to you? When you cannot answer those questions, the desire is not your freedom. It is your instruction. The prison Spinoza reveals is not made of walls you can see. It is made of causes you cannot see, and the most dangerous quality of this prison is precisely that it is invisible. A visible cage at least tells you where you are. An invisible cage allows you to walk in circles for a lifetime while calling it exploration. You are aware of your desires, you feel them, you pursue them, but you are not aware of what produces them. And that gap between feeling a desire and understanding what generates it is where the prison lives. Spinoza called this condition human bondage, not bondage in the theatrical sense, not chains on the body. Bondage of the mind, a state in which the person is carried by their passions the way a stone is carried by gravity. Without knowledge, without understanding, without the power to do anything other than follow the force that moves them. The stone does not know it is falling. It does not understand the law that governs it. It simply falls, and in exactly that way, a human being can live an entire life following desires, fears, and reactions whose causes they have never once examined. Here is what makes this unbearable when you finally see it clearly. The person inside this bondage is not suffering from the absence of options. They often have many options. What they are missing is not choice. What they are missing is the understanding of what moves them toward certain choices and away from others. They are being selected by their past, their fears, their conditioned preferences, their inherited beliefs. And they are calling that selection freedom. The invisible prison does not take your options away. It simply ensures that all your options lead back to the same cell. Look at the world you live in. You have access to more choices than any human being in recorded history. You can choose from thousands of meals, thousands of faces on a screen, thousands of pieces of content, thousands of opinions, thousands of products designed to express your unique personality. And yet something strange has happened alongside this explosion of options. The rates of anxiety are not falling. The rates of chronic dissatisfaction are not falling. The feeling of being trapped, purposeless, reactive, and empty is not disappearing. More choices. Same prison, because what the modern world has perfected is not freedom. It is the simulation of freedom. Social media gives you the feeling of expression without demanding that you understand what you are expressing or why. Dating applications give you the sensation of choosing without asking what you are really looking for, or what wound shapes what you are looking for. Outrage culture gives you the electricity of strong emotion without asking what causes the emotion or what it produces in you. Advertising teaches you to mistake the desire it implants in you for a preference that belongs to you. You scroll, you react, you crave, you consume, you express, you repeat. The speed of the cycle keeps you from ever stopping long enough to ask who is running it, and that is not an accident. A person who never asks that question is a person who never leaves the cell. If this is beginning to feel uncomfortably familiar, press the like button. Not for this video, for the person in your life who is also moving fast, also choosing constantly, and also feeling that none of it is quite adding up. Let them find this too. Spinoza was writing in the 17th century, but the human being he was writing about is you. He looked at the way people suffered, reacted, desired, and destroyed themselves, and he did not reach for moral judgment. He did not ask whether you are good or bad, disciplined or lazy, faithful or sinful. He asked something far more precise. What is causing this? He approached human emotion the way a scientist approaches a natural phenomenon. Not with shame, not with punishment, not with vague spiritual advice, but with the desire to understand the causes operating beneath the surface of what you feel and what you do. Spinoza did not believe in the kind of free will most people imagine. He did not believe in a sovereign self, floating above the world, free from cause, freely selecting its life from an unlimited menu. He thought that idea was one of the most dangerous illusions the human mind had ever created. Not because he wanted to destroy your sense of self, but because he understood that as long as you believe you are already free, you will never look for the causes that are actually governing you. And the causes that go unexamined are the causes that rule you completely. Every desire you experience has a cause. Every fear that moves you has a cause. Every preference you treat as natural. Every reaction you treat as obvious. Every belief you treat as just common sense. All of it has causes. Not because you are a machine, but because you are a real being living inside a real world that has shaped you in specific ways at specific moments through specific encounters. Spinoza's insight is not that you are without power. His insight is that your power begins only when you start tracing those causes instead of obeying them blindly. Consider something as simple as the need for approval. Most people feel it. Most people feel it so automatically that they treat it like a law of nature. Of course, I want people to respect me. Of course, I feel pain when I am criticized. But Spinoza would stop there and ask, where did that particular intensity come from? Was there a moment in childhood when love was conditional on performance? Was there an environment where disapproval meant danger? Was there a voice, a parent, a teacher, a society that taught you that your worth depended on the judgment of others? The need for approval is not a fact of human nature. It is a learned response with a history. And when you do not know that history, the response runs you. Or consider the craving for constant stimulation, the inability to sit still, to be alone with silence, to let a moment be empty. This too feels natural. This too feels like personality. But what is underneath it? What does silence make you feel? What did stillness threaten in you at some earlier point? What did you learn to avoid through motion, through noise, through constant activity? When you trace the desire back, you often find that what felt like a preference was actually a protection. A strategy that once made sense and has long since become a cage. Spinoza's law of causes does not humiliate you, it illuminates you. And illumination is always the first step toward real movement. Spinoza made a distinction that changes everything once you understand it. He drew a line between passive emotions and active understanding. A passive emotion is one that happens to you. One that you experience as a reaction, a surge, a compulsion, an automatic response to something that triggered it. You do not produce it consciously. It arrives, and you follow it or fight it, but either way, it is driving. Active understanding is different. It is what happens when you trace the emotion back to its cause, examine it, name it, and bring it under the light of your reason. The emotion does not disappear, but your relationship to it transforms completely. Think of someone who reacts with rage every time they feel ignored. The passive version of that person is the one who experiences the rage as truth, as immediate proof that something unbearable is happening, something that must be responded to right now with full force. The rage commands and the person obeys. They say things, they do things, they damage things, and afterward they wonder why the pattern keeps repeating. The person moving toward active understanding is different. They feel the same surge, but they have learned to ask, what is this? Where does this intensity come from? Is being ignored now connected to something that happened before? Is the size of this reaction proportional to this moment or to a much older moment? That question does not eliminate the pain, but it changes who is in charge of what happens next. This is what Spinoza means by freedom, not the absence of causes, not the impossible state of having no influences, no history, no inner forces. Spinoza was not naive about human nature. He understood that you will always be moved. The question is whether you are moved as a passive object moved by forces it cannot name, or as a conscious being who understands the forces moving through it and can, through that understanding, begin to act rather than simply react. The difference between those two states is the entire difference between the mental prison and the door. You are not broken. Let that land before anything else is said. The fact that you have been living inside patterns you did not consciously choose does not mean something has gone wrong with you. It means something has gone exactly as it goes for every human being who has not yet been given the tools to examine the causes that moved them. You are not a failed version of freedom. You are a human being who was shaped by forces, some warm, some painful, some invisible, and who has been doing exactly what a person does with those forces when no one teaches them to look beneath the surface. You have been surviving, and surviving looks like many things, including choices that feel like freedom and turn out to be loops. Spinoza does not ask you to be ashamed of having causes. He would consider that absurd. Everything in existence has causes. The stone has causes. The storm has causes. The desire, the fear, the craving, the avoidance. All of it has causes. The question Spinoza asks is not whether you have been shaped. Of course you have. The question is whether you know how. Because not knowing how you have been shaped is not neutrality. It is surrender. It is handing the wheel to every force that has ever moved through you without your consent and calling that driving. What Spinoza is offering is not a verdict on your past. He is offering a direction for your mind. You cannot undo the causes that shaped you. That is not what this is about. But you can begin to see them. And when you see them, something changes. Not immediately, not magically, but structurally. The cause that you can name is a cause that has lost its ability to operate in complete darkness. And darkness is where the prison holds its power. Not in force, in invisibility. Here is why the prison feels like freedom. When a desire rises inside you, it comes from within your own body, your own mind, your own nervous system. It does not arrive with a label that says this was installed by fear, or this was built by an old wound, or this is a strategy your 12-year-old self invented to feel safe. It arrives as hunger, as preference, as what you want. And because it comes from inside you, you experience it as you, not as something acting on you, as something that is you. This is the architecture of the cage. It uses the intimacy of your own experience against your understanding. Imagine a person who grew up in an environment where love had to be earned. where affection arrived only when certain conditions were met, certain performances delivered, certain moods managed. That person eventually forms a deep, automatic conviction that they must be useful to be loved. Not as a philosophy they have chosen, as a feeling that lives in their body. They go through life working hard, overextending, making themselves indispensable, and they call it generosity. They call it strength. They call it their personality. But the bars of that particular cell were installed long before they were old enough to ask whether they wanted them. And every time they give too much, every time they cannot receive without anxiety, every time they feel worthless in stillness, the cell is maintaining itself. And it feels from the inside like who they are. Spinoza would call this living at the mercy of inadequate ideas. Not inadequate as in stupid, inadequate as in incomplete. The idea, I must earn love, is not the full picture. It is a fragment of experience mistaken for a universal law. And a fragment mistaken for a law will govern you with the same authority as a complete truth, except that it will take you nowhere that serves your actual growth. The puppet who does not know it is a puppet does not look for the strings. It just keeps moving and calls the movement dance. This is why willpower alone is not enough. This is why deciding to be different, truly deciding, strongly deciding, often does not work. The decision is made at the surface. The cause lives much deeper. You cannot overpower a root by trimming the branches. The branches grow back because the root is untouched. Spinoza's approach is not to fight the desire from above. It is to go beneath the desire and understand what feeds it. That is not weakness. That is the most demanding form of inner work there is. Here is what Spinoza forces you to confront. Many of the things you call your own are not your own. The preferences that feel most personal, the beliefs that feel most natural, the desires that feel most urgent. Many of them were placed in you by forces that had nothing to do with your freedom and everything to do with their own needs. The culture that told you what a successful person looks like. The family system that taught you what emotions were acceptable and which ones were dangerous. The media that showed you what was desirable and what was shameful. The social environment that rewarded certain performances and punished certain silences. You absorbed all of it before you had any instrument with which to examine it. This is not a conspiracy. It is not a reason for resentment. Spinoza does not want you to be outraged at the world that shaped you. He wants you to see it clearly. Because seeing it clearly is the only thing that changes your relationship to it. As long as you believe that your automatic desires are pure self-expression, you will continue defending them as freedom, while living them as command. The uncomfortable truth is that freedom has to be built. It does not arrive with desire. It does not arrive with the ability to choose from a long menu. It arrives only when you understand what is choosing through you and why. If you are beginning to see that some of what you have called your choices might actually be causes you have never examined, comment the word freedom below. Not because you have arrived, but because you are beginning to ask the question that opens the door. And that question is everything. The first practice Spinoza's philosophy demands is the most confronting one. You must stop at the desire, stop at the reaction, stop at the craving or the fear or the compulsive urge and ask, where did this come from? Not rhetorically, not as a way of dismissing the desire, but as a genuine act of investigation. What is the history of this particular impulse? What taught you to want this? What wound is this avoiding? What fear is this obeying? What childhood instruction is this still executing? This is not a comfortable process. When you trace certain desires back to their origin, you find things that are difficult to look at. You find loneliness dressed as ambition. You find terror dressed as perfectionism. You find a desperate need for validation dressed as a passion for excellence. You find grief dressed as anger, and anger dressed as principles, and insecurity dressed as high standards. These discoveries are not pleasant, but they are enormously important, because you cannot address what you refuse to name, and you cannot name what you refuse to trace. Spinoza believed that an adequate idea, a complete understanding of a thing, including its causes, was itself a form of power. Not power over the world, power over your own response to the world. When you understand that a particular desire was born from fear rather than genuine need, you are no longer obligated to follow it with the same urgency. The desire may still be there. The feeling may still rise, but your relationship to it has shifted. You are now the one looking at it rather than the one being carried by it. That is the beginning of the only freedom Spinoza considered real. The second practice is one of the most liberating things Spinoza's philosophy makes possible. You must learn to observe your impulses without becoming them. You must learn to feel the wave without being pulled under it. This is not emotional suppression. This is not the cold command to stop feeling. Spinoza was not asking you to become a statue. He was asking you to become a witness to your own inner life rather than a prisoner of it. When a painful emotion arises, jealousy, rage, shame, longing, despair, the untrained mind does one of two things. It obeys the emotion without question, pouring into action everything the emotion demands. Or it tries to crush the emotion, to deny it, to force it underground where it grows larger and stranger. Spinoza offers a third path. Name it. Observe it. Ask what it is made of and where it is coming from. Let it exist in the light of your awareness without immediately becoming it. You are not your jealousy. You are not your shame. You are not your rage or your longing. These are patterns moving through you. Real patterns, important patterns, patterns worth understanding. But they are not your permanent nature. They are your current instruction, and instructions can be examined. This separation is not something that happens once in a dramatic moment of clarity. It is a practice. It is something you do again and again and again. Each time a strong impulse rises and tries to convince you that it is the only truth. Over time, this practice creates a different kind of inner architecture. A space begins to form between the impulse and the response. That space is not emptiness. That space is where your actual agency lives. It is small at first and easily lost, but it grows with every honest act of observation. And Spinoza would say that everything real that could be called freedom lives inside that space. Spinoza had a concept that most people overlook because it sounds simple but carries enormous implications. He understood that what we encounter shapes what we feel, and what we feel shapes what we become. Your emotional and intellectual life is not entirely your own production. It is partly the product of what you allow to enter your attention, the books you read or do not read, the conversations you participate in or avoid, the environments you place yourself inside, the sources of information and emotion you return to again and again. All of this is shaping the quality of your inner life in ways that are real, measurable, and largely invisible to you while they are happening. This means that freedom is not only an internal act, it also involves making deliberate choices about what you expose your mind to. If every day your attention is fed a steady diet of outrage, comparison, anxiety, and shallow stimulation, your inner life will reflect that diet. Not because you are weak, because you are porous. Human beings are shaped by what they encounter. That is not a flaw. It is how growth and learning work, but it means that environment is not neutral. It is a force, and if you are not choosing your environment consciously, your environment is choosing what you become. Spinoza would encourage you to seek encounters that expand your understanding rather than contract it. Conversations with people who think carefully and speak honestly. Ideas that complicate your current model of reality rather than simply confirming it. Experiences of beauty, of nature, of depth, of genuine connection. The kinds of encounters that increase what Spinoza called your power of acting, your capacity to think, feel, and respond from a place of greater clarity rather than smaller fear. This does not mean living in a sealed garden away from difficulty. It means actively, deliberately, choosing inputs that move you toward understanding rather than deeper into the loops of compulsion. The fourth practice is the one that most surprises people when they first encounter Spinoza's thought, because it sounds like it should produce despair and instead produces something close to its opposite. Spinoza teaches that everything that happens through necessity. The causes that shaped you were not random. The nature you carry is not arbitrary. The world you live in operates according to laws that do not bend for your preferences or your pain. And Spinoza asks you to see this clearly, not to make you helpless, to make you honest. The person who refuses to accept necessity is the person who spends enormous amounts of energy demanding that reality behave differently than it does. That the past had been different, that other people were different, that they themselves were different, that conditions were arranged more favorably. This demand is not hope. It is a particular form of suffering, and it keeps the person permanently at war with what is, rather than engaged with what can actually be done. Spinoza calls this a passive state, the mind turned against reality, burning its power in resentment of what cannot be changed. Accepting necessity is not the same as giving up. It does not mean that you stop acting, stop caring, stop moving towards something better. It means that you act from clarity rather than from war. It means that you understand the real conditions you are working within, rather than the imaginary conditions you wish you were working within. A sailor who understands the actual direction of the wind is not less capable than a sailor who refuses to accept it. They are more capable because they are navigating from truth rather than from preference. Spinoza's freedom is not the freedom of a world with no limits. It is the freedom of a mind that understands the limits clearly enough to find its actual power within them. Let us name what has been revealed. You began this video believing in some quiet way that desire equals freedom, that following what you want is the same as choosing what you want. Spinoza dismantled that equation. He showed that desire has causes, that the causes that go unexamined become the prison, that a person can live in a cell they experience as open sky if the bars of the cell are made of something invisible enough, like fear internalized as preference, or wound internalized as personality, or obedience internalized as passion. You also saw what real freedom requires. It requires the willingness to trace your desires back to their source, to separate who you are from what moves through you, to choose your encounters deliberately, to accept the necessity of what is real without abandoning your power to act within that reality. None of these are comfortable. None of them are instant. All of them are possible. Spinoza did not offer comfort. He never pretended that understanding was easy. But he was absolutely certain that it was the only thing capable of producing freedom that was not another name for a more refined captivity. You came into this video as someone who had desires. You may leave it as someone who investigates desires. That is not a small change. It is a fundamental shift in what kind of relationship you have with your own inner life. The person who consumes their impulses, who feels them, follows them, defends them, and calls that living, is a person whose life is largely written by causes they have never met. The person who investigates their impulses, who feels them, traces them, understands them, and then decides, is a person who is beginning to participate in their own life in a real way. Spinoza would say that this shift in identity is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of one. And the beginning is not a moment of arrival. It is a reorientation. It is the mind turning toward its own causes with genuine curiosity rather than automatic obedience. It is the self becoming slowly and imperfectly and with many reversals, a more conscious participant in its own existence. That is what Spinoza called the free person, not someone without causes. Someone who lives in understanding of their causes and through that understanding recovers the power to act from a place that is genuinely their own. So return now to the question that opened this video. What if the life you proudly call freedom is actually a mental prison built from desires you never chose and fears you never examined? You are now equipped to ask that question differently, not with despair, not with self-accusation, but with the particular kind of clarity that comes from having looked honestly at how the prison is built and what it is made of. The bars are real, but so is the understanding, and Spinoza was certain with everything he had that understanding is always stronger than the darkness it enters. If this conversation has opened something in you, If some part of you is ready to keep going deeper into what Spinoza reveals about freedom, suffering, desire, guilt, and the nature of the mind, then subscribe to Spinoza Reveals. Every video on this channel is built on the same foundation as this one. Not comfort, not performance, not shallow inspiration. Understanding, because understanding is the only freedom that cannot be taken from you.